All right, the doors are opening, and here comes the crowd. And we'll see what they say when they come out, of course.
Stop the foreclosures!
Here comes everybody. Here comes Christine Fraser. We love you! All right. We love you guys. Here's Christine Fraser, hugging Copper. There's Tim Franzen, done a whole lot for the movement. Joe Beasley.
We just came out of a meeting. If y'all want to gather around, we'll tell you what happened.
We definitely want to know.
we just came out of a meeting, and our understanding going in was this sheriff was going to have an ounce of humility and say he did the wrong thing, and to maybe even, make a personal contribution to legal fees. It became apparent from the very beginning that he doesn't have the ability, at least today, to turn down the volume on his arrogance. He insulted Miss Fraser. He told our lawyer he had nothing but bad information. And whatever little threads of apology that would shine through every once in a while, they were overshadowed by his unwillingness to recognize that he did anything wrong. It's clear that this sheriff doesn't have a problem with doing evictions at 3 a.m. And one of the things that he said directly was that based on all the information he has now, he'd do it again.
That's ridiculous.
He'd do it again. So what we had hoped would have been an opportunity for us to de-escalate and refocus on the real bad guys here, Investment One Corporation. The sheriff was not able to give us that opportunity to do that. And instead, he forced Chris to relive that bullying experience that she had. So, as somebody who showed up at 4 o'clock in the morning that night and wasn't allowed because of an illegal police blockade of her community, and saw all that stuff and had walked through this with Chris, I am very unsatisfied with what I just experienced. And I personally want to apologize to you, Chris, to even bringing you in there. I am so sorry, and I think some of the stuff that you said, was really relevant. So,
the thing that I'm puzzled about now is what the lawyer said. That is that he had filed a paper that had been stamped and received by the court, and if in fact,
speak up a little bit, Mr. Beasley.
Yeah, but I'm puzzled about really at this point whether it was a really illegal eviction, because as I understand from the attorney, he'd appealed to a higher court, a federal court, and it had been stamped and sealed in the Superior Court office. And if in fact they went during business hours, then a call would have been made and they'd have searched the record, and they would have found that in fact it had been appealed to the higher federal court. And so therefore the sheriff would not be in any obligation to execute that until such time as the federal court had answered. Is that right?
Well, what's going on is there's a thing, a counter affidavit. Generally, once it's stamped and filed in the actual court system, once a sheriff is to receive it, they're supposed to contact the actual court to see what's going on currently with that case. Because essentially what you're doing is you're countering or you're appealing the particular writ that's taking place. Usually that's associated with some type of case. In this case, it was associated with a case in a temporary restraining order that was filed. The order had not been put in place, it was filed, so a hearing would have been had on it. At that time, that was still taking place in Superior Court. At that time, the case was then removed to federal court. That means that the judge in Superior Court didn't have an opportunity to rule yet. However, now it was giving the opportunity for a federal court judge to rule on it. Because of that, the sheriffs could have had the opportunity to call the Superior Court, see what was currently going on, and be able to make a determination, that the judge make a determination whether or not it would have been in good form or whether it had been right to move forward with the actual eviction. This didn't take place because it was at 3 a.m. They couldn't do that. They couldn't determine whether or not, they couldn't contact the court because of the time. So essentially, it doesn't necessarily say they didn't have an order, but they didn't go through the necessary channels that the law would require in order to make sure that what they were doing was proper. And that's really what we're trying to reach here. Not only that 3 a.m. I think is wrong for anyone, but when someone tries to execute and use the actual laws to ensure that what the sheriff believes he was doing through his orders, to make sure that's what the judge or that's what justice would have required him to do. Because the judge may have said, you know what, we don't think this is proper in this particular case because of what's been filed. Or they would have said, go right on ahead. But you prevent that. You take the hands out of the individuals who've given you the authority to even move on that order by doing it at 3 a.m. You can't make those contacts. You can't make those calls, as the law would state, because you're doing it at an unreasonable time. And nobody's up doing business at 3 a.m. in the morning. And that's the problem that I really have with this issue. I cannot take away the fact that she had an order already in. But I can state that there was a temporary restraining order filed, a hearing so it could be on to determine whether or not we could get that writ taken away. There was an actual case filed in Superior Court, which was then removed to federal court, and that there was a counter affidavit filed. All of these things are on the court record. All of them are public information. So, I mean, to be honest, when the sheriff says he didn't receive it, at the time, he wasn't a party to the case, so it wasn't in his interest to receive it prior to the time that Ms. Frazier would have handed it to one of his sheriffs when they came to evict her, as the law states. So, again, I'm not saying he's beyond his duties, but there was a duty, there was a misstep. There was something that they did not do. And it could have avoided and it made this issue not be here right now. But to some degree, it's bringing people together, unfortunately, at the pain of Ms. Frazier. So hopefully we can bring justice to her and justice to many others. And if anything, we can get the 3 a.m. evictions done with and really get them at a proper hour, because we're still people. We're not dogs, we're not animals, we're individuals, we have rights, and again, we have rights to life, liberty, and property. And when that's taken away, you really take away people's humanity.
Amen.
That's right.
I wish we could follow up on it and see what...
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get in this fight personally. I can't speak for anybody else to fight individual sheriffs. I got in it to fight banks, but we can't afford to have guys like this acting on behalf of the banks, just like mad dogs, making up laws as they go along. You know, excessive force. So I mean, it is impossible to separate those that enforce the bank's improper, illegal disrespect of our citizens' human rights from, you know, the police force that enforces it. You know,
We're going forward and see what would have happened if. Is that any way we could?
Oh yeah. There's some communications that are going to be made, and we'll see what goes on from there. But the unfortunate thing in this situation is that Ms. Frazier has already been put out.
Yeah.
So regardless of whether or not they receive this counter affidavit, regardless of whether or not they see that the judge may have ruled in favor for Ms. Frazier, it's done now. What I will say though is that there still is a case pending concerning her claims against various defendants, Investors One and other defendants, to not only get her house back, but to bring justice to her and her family. So, one wrong, and I always show people that you may not have won the battle, but the war is far from over. And that's just what I'll remind everybody in this situation. She may have lost a particular battle here, but that doesn't mean that her life is over, nor that that means her rights as being able to bring her case in court and have her just day in court is gone. It's still there, and we're just really waiting. Unfortunately, now it requires us to be a lot more patient, but I guess patient with the struggle of not being in the comfortable home that she's used to being in.
Before folks go, we want to make sure that we're going to continue to move forward in DeKalb County. We're asking folks to come to the commissioners meeting. It's tomorrow at 9 o'clock at Maloof Auditorium at 1300 Commerce Drive. There'll be an announcement going out on our listserv over Facebook, and one of the things we're going to be doing there is there's going to be the introduction of a policy that would make what happened to Chris Frazier against the law. So if you can be there and stand with Chris, we sure would appreciate it. And 9 a.m. And we'll be putting out that announcement.